The Phoenix Suns have been struggling in the half court offensively over the last 4 games and fourth quarters. There's been some good, some bad, some room for improvement. That's what we're here to look at through my eye. Let's get to the film. All right, so as we kind of get sped up on the film and just looking at things that the Suns have been parsing through in the fourth quarters, I will start by assessing the lay of the land and bringing the context to it all. So obviously the Suns have been operating without Dillon Brooks, key to their fourth quarters. Grayson Allen for a large majority of these last 4 games. Very important and integral to their fourth quarters. Mark Williams in some capacity as well with all of this too. Sometimes he might not close games, but he usually plays at least a 4 to 6 minute window in that fourth quarter stretch. So we're just applying that context to everything that we're looking through the lens of these last 4 games. There's obvious reasons why they've been struggling as far as that part of it goes, but the parts that they can control, the parts that are very much correctable in that as well, that's exactly what we're here to look at, as well as some positives. So we'll start with 4 room for improvement plays in ways that I can see them just easily from film that they go over and just coaching and how to kind of manipulate things to their advantage for the things that they want to get to in fourth quarters. This will be the first 4 that we're looking at. So I want to start here with this one against the Spurs from last night. So you start here, and obviously you have Rasheer Fleming on the floor, as well as Kamal Malawach. And you have Devin Booker in the middle of the floor, obviously the person they want to get the ball to, directing traffic. That's going to naturally eat away at your clock in terms of how much time you're going to have to get to an advantage or a trigger, and then have opportunity in terms of time to play off of the attention from the trigger or the action that it is you're trying to get to. So this is all going to be eating away at the time of possession. Naturally, you also see where within the last 5 minutes of the game. So the game is naturally going to be slowing down within that as well. All of those things being said, the Suns still have shown to and therefore can play significantly faster than they have shown to do in some moments over this last 4 games on the road. So looking at this play, Devin Booker, Jalen Green gets into the half court set. He's trying to get to the spot that he needs to so that Devin can do what he needs to. And they're still kind of directing traffic in terms of all of the spacing and where they want guys outside of the action on the periphery. So Devin finally gets his touch, 16 seconds left. Not bad. A little bit slower than they typically would maybe want to per se, but not bad at all in any capacity. Here's where it just kind of gets a little bit muddy. So I'll let it flow through the rest of the way. I'll bring it back to this point, and then we'll kind of break down exactly what's happening. So you see action kind of stalls out there, and it's tick, 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 tick. There's nothing else really happening. And then they end up getting a somewhat predictable shot up on the glass. Ends up being a miss. And they're not going to end up scoring on the back end of that possession either. I'll break down that part once I get back to the point that I stopped at before. Nonetheless, they're trying to target Dylan Harper Jr. right here. Dylan Harper being guarded by Jordan Goodwin. So we see Goody kind of hooking his way in to set this screen for Devin Booker. And you kind of see the kind of roundabout fashion. That route into the screen is with intent to be able to trigger and force a switch without there being much of any help to the sideline side of the floor where Devin Booker is now using this hunt screen from Jordan Goodwin. So you get the screen, you get the preferred matchup. This is typically this approach to offense when your matchup hunting is slow developing in its nature. You can only play but so fast because you need your spacing to be as good as it could be. Everybody being away from the play. These 2 players playing in an organic 2 versus 2. The Suns know that they're switching, so they want to get to the preferred matchup. Cool. That's fine. That's all good. But once you get the preferred matchup or you have the opportunity at it, you want to be able to then attack things in a manner in which is going to be able to get you advantage. So for one, as I bring it back a little bit more, I mentioned what the Suns wanted to do. We see what actually happens. Jordan Goodwin sets the screen, but there ends up not actually being a switch that's triggered. All of this is just tick, 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 eating away at the shot clock. I paused it last time. We were at 16. We're now at 9 seconds. The Suns don't have any of the spacing that they truly want. No advantage has been created, and they haven't put any pressure on the Spurs defense. Their defensive shell is completely intact, and typically after an action breaks down on the perimeter like this, it's a predictable screen that's going to flow in the longest distance fashion as possible. Kamal Malawach having to sprint up all the way from the baseline. Luke Kennard with his antennas up is already anticipating this screen kind of coming from Kamal Malawach. Ends up not even end up being a screen that's going to be set. What the Suns want to do on this is bring the preferred matchup into action, which is Dylan Harper. Strike 1 on this possession. Strike 2, they then want to attempt to either get Devin Booker in space or bring the opposing 5, Luke Kennard, off the porch around the basket and a little bit further onto the perimeter in some capacity. So Kamal Malowacz, instead of going to set the screen here, kind of sets a little misdirection screen on his weak side, hoping that that's going to occupy the attention of Luke Kennard. That does not happen. And again, tick, 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 the shot clock is still dwindling down, and now it's working as an additional layer of pressure to the Suns outside of the Spurs defense. Luke Kennard could care less about the screen that's being set on the backside from Kamal Malowacz. His antennas are all on Devin Booker naturally. He's just going to sit in this gap and watch the kind of dance that he's doing, almost like tap dancing inside the paint and outside the paint. What he's doing is staying in that gap so that Devin Booker can't comfortably drive left or right against Devin Vassell. And he's also resetting the 3-second call so he can't get called for 3 seconds in the paint. So as I bring the slow down button into the mix, you can see Luke Kennard just resetting the 2-9, tiptoeing in and out of the paint and in and out of the paint. This is all helping to weaponize the shot clock to the Suns, while Devin Booker has to now navigate against Devin Vassell in isolation without having created any advantage. Ends up having to settle for a late clock, hotly contested sidestep 3, a shot that Devin can make. He is a tough shot maker, a premier tough shot maker, but the process into it is entirely too slow. They're not organized, and they end up getting a predictable shot on goal without having put any pressure on the Spurs defense. Credit to the Spurs and Luke Kennard for not leaving the paint unattended, which would allow for Devin Booker to drive left or right without him being in that picture if he's occupied with everything that's going on his backside here. Nonetheless, the Suns offense is entirely too slow, too predictable on this rep. End up having to settle for a low percentage shot, and they end up getting the offensive rebound, like I mentioned on the onset of it. Nonetheless, they still end up not getting any pressure on the rim and no pressure on the defense in a way that's getting a true shot that they're looking for in the rhythm that they're hoping for. And it ends up being a little bit more of a possession wasted in terms of not putting pressure on their opponents instead of them being able to kind of dictate, which is what ultimately got them this lead that they were working with at this juncture of the game. This one coming against the Toronto Raptors, obviously. So start with assessing the lay of the land. The Raptors at this point in the game are in their small ball. Scotty Barnes is at the 5 for them in terms of their defensive personnel. And that's going to put a wrench in the things that the Suns like to do in terms of running pick and roll with their big to bring the opposing big into primary action and away from the paint to then find ways to attack off of that from there. So that part in mind, and then also taking into account the physicality and the athletes that they have on the floor for them defensively, just kind of assess what's going on. You see, again, 12 seconds. The Suns haven't quite got to a trigger until then. They get the preferred matchup that they're looking for in Emmanuel quickly. But now it's about the what are you doing after that, the and then what part of the sentence. So you get to that, you get to the matchup that you want, and then what are you doing after that? So I bring it back here, let this one, after letting it flow through, and you kind of see what I'm getting at. So I'll start right here. Oso Ighodaro wants to go from the baseline to using this kind of ram screen from Grayson Allen in the middle third of the floor, but they realize, oh wait, this is Scotty Barnes. This is not Jakob Poeltl or any of the other bigs that the Raptors have on their roster that's in the lineup now. On top of that, Scotty Barnes gets a beat on the action, and he's able to navigate that screen well. So Oso Ighodaro just elects to go away from action and try to set an off-ball screen, create a different type of advantage. That puts a wrench in all of the desires that they wanted in this action to start it. And then you get to the guard screen portion. So now you have a preferred matchup in Emmanuel Quickly, who's being guarded by who's guarding Grayson Allen. So Grayson Allen naturally comes to set the screen on the basketball for Devin Booker. And what the Suns do have is both wings being cleared. So they have decent spacing. Oso Ighodaro is working in a dunker spot, strong side at this present moment. Grayson Allen is setting his screen flat. So what we're gonna see here is Grayson ultimately sets the screen and then flips the angle just enough to try to trigger the switch, which is now done successfully. Now you get the preferred matchup, 11 seconds left. What do you do to put pressure on the defense to get the shot that you want, or to create good shot quality from someone else outside of Devin Booker? And the answer on this possession is not much. The defense is now loaded completely into the gaps. You got, obviously, as I zoom in here, you got RJ Barrett to the left gap of Devin Booker, and you got Brandon Ingram to the right gap. And then in the paint right now, presently guarding Oso Ighodaro down low, as you see, you got Scotty Barnes anticipating the drive from Devin Booker. Devin Booker is not able to get into a rim-threatening, paint-threatening drive. The Suns are going to ultimately get into their slide cuts. You're going to have a fill behind here from Grayson Allen topside. and then running the baseline to clear that space in this corner is going to be Jalen Green. So you get all of this. It's still going to end up being a little bit of an isolation for Devin Booker. And then it ultimately gets to, as he gets into deep water, ends up getting two to the basketball, and now he's in a nearly impossible situation. He's gotten a late double team from late help from the Toronto Raptors. The Suns haven't generated any type of true advantage or threatening actions on the Raptors defense. Everybody's kind of had their feet dug into their defensive shell for Toronto, and there's only 4.5 seconds left. You haven't done much of anything with your offense, and now you're going to have Devin Booker settle for another hotly contested shot, a shot that he's shown the ability to make, but when he does make those shots, it typically comes in a significantly different rhythm and cadence than this shot does. Not the best shot quality, not a good process from the Suns at all in terms of the execution part, and that's room for improvement for them. All right, get to this next one. Another one where he left a little bit to be desired. This one is going to be a little bit quicker hitting of fashion. Nonetheless, I'll let it flow through. You see a ton of physicality. You see the Boston Celtics just doing what they do best in terms of just muddying up the flow and process for what a team wants to do and taking those things away while doing it with physicality off the ball. So as I zoom in and I let this play flow through again and I slow it down some, we see middle staggers being set for Devin Booker. They like to get him middle third touches because it's a lot harder to double team a guy, and when he's in between the kind of lane lines of the court. He has better vision, better angles, better advantage to play off of if he's able to get a touch there. So I understand what they want to get from this action. The issue is when you bring too many bodies into the mix, now you're kind of allowing the defense to have opportunity to dictate to you the timing and flow of you getting to where you ultimately want to get to. And as we've talked about with the two prior reps, the Suns offense has been a little bit too slow in the half court offensively on a lot of possessions that they've gotten into in fourth quarters recently. So we see Devin Booker initially matched up with Peyton Pritchard. Jalen Green peels in to set this first screen for Devin Booker. Jalen Brown now says, okay, cool. You want to set the screen, Jalen Green? We're fine with switching and having me guard Devin Booker instead of Peyton Pritchard. So there's a more advantageous matchup with Peyton Pritchard, and I say that in respect to him just because of his height more than it is his ability or willingness to be a good defender, because he is a solid defender. So you go from having somewhat of an advantage on matchups to disadvantage because of the physicality, but also just the size component with Jalen Brown. What I would rather like to have seen from the Suns on this rep, and it's not something that we haven't seen Devin Booker and the Suns do before this season alone. He gets to these middle staggers, and if he sees that the middle third of the floor is kind of muddied up and it's just a lot of bodies there and they're really being handsy with them there, for one, there probably should be a little bit of a foul called at some point if it's getting to that point in this portion of the game, especially with the way that things were being called on the other side. Nonetheless, what I would like to see from Devin on this rep is, instead of going trying to flow up on this one, you got all of this space unoccupied and you have the preferred matchup in Peyton Pritchard. What about if Devin just rejects this screen, gets a touch in the mid-post area of the floor, gets an efficient touch with about maybe 16 or 15 or even 14 seconds on the clock, kind of weaponize all of this space. Maybe he ends up getting fouled. Maybe he gets up a better shot on goal. I think there's more of a positive result that could come from the Suns on this rep if he's able to kind of reject and get into all of this space that they've kind of manipulated to be free for him. But also, the other part for me too with it is he can get some better screens set from his teammates. And that's the part that I want to focus on in this last portion of this rep. So you see Jalen Green trying to set this screen. Yes, there's a lot of handsy contact from Peyton Pritchard, essentially passing the baton off to Jalen Brown. So job well done from them on that rep. But the next screen from Oso, I think they can be a little bit better of a screen set. He really tries to squeeze and kind of get to the point where it's not an illegal screen, but he's getting enough contact. I think a little bit more could be done on all existing parties in this middle third, so all three players for the Suns, just doing a better job of prying their best player open, getting them free for a catch, and then working to advantage from there. There's kind of some multiple outlets and opportunity that they can go a different route about doing things on this rep. Nonetheless, not a good possession for them. It ends up shrinking the shot clock, and they end up not scoring on the back end of that possession from sideline out of bounds after the challenge. Get to this last rep of room for improvement or room to be desired for players, and then we'll get into some positive ones. So last one taking place against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I talked about screening a little bit on the last rep. I'll let this one flow through a little bit, and we'll break it down after, but you might kind of get a beat on what it is I'll be kind of speaking to on this one after it gets done flowing through. All right, so you see the shot clock just dwindling down. The Suns haven't truly put a lot of pressure on the Timberwolves defense. They do end up getting an offensive rebound, but they're not able to have anything to show for it at a crucial juncture of the game while they're trying to claw back into it. So as we break this one down now, so obviously you see the Suns are set up in, this is an alignment that they often use that turns into a double drag. So usually it's the big that's first in the spot where Devin Booker is. So usually when they're getting to their double drag situations, it's usually the big here where Devin Booker is, and then it's obviously Devin Booker where also Iguodala is. They're in this position intentionally because what they want to do is get right here to this matchup. Rudy Gobert, get him out in space, potentially trigger a switch, but generally pull him away from the paint. And they have that early in the action with what it is they're showing in presentation to potentially be getting into. This is not going to be double drag because Devin Booker is the first person here. So what the Suns do is, because they have this wing cleared and they also have this wing cleared, they're going to be getting into a little bit of a flare screen early in the clock, trying to get as much advantage and put pressure on Rudy Gobert and ultimately the paint and the rim as early in the clock as they possibly can. So A+ in terms of the desire for the possession, and now it's about the execution part. They have the pieces on the chessboard where they want them to be at, and now it's about getting to the matchup you want and pulling him away from the basket, but doing so with intent, with good purpose. So we see this initial screen be set from Oso Iguodala. Oso is a great screener, one of the better screeners in the NBA. I'm not a fan of this angle on this screen for the flare for Devin Booker because look at what it does for Jaden McDaniels. He's able to just slide right through, go right under it, and he's able to get right back to the matchup that they want defensively, while Devin Booker does not have direct access to the matchup that he wants with Rudy Gobert. So they do get a little bit of an urgent reaction out of the defense, but it's not a drive to the point of now Devin Booker is threatening to score the basketball. So now it's just eating away at the shot clock. Nonetheless, because they got into action so early, 16 seconds left on the clock, okay, cool. Might not have had the best flare screen set for Devin Booker, but you still have enough time because you got into your offense early to potentially get into a second trigger or a second advantage, so long as you do so with intent and purpose. So we see the ball kind of ring around the rosy back around. Devin Booker boomerangs. It gets back to him from Jordan Goodwin. Jordan Goodwin now flows in to set this screen for Devin Booker. And again, screening angles. If you're screening, you have to do it with great intent and you have to do it with great purpose. And Jordan Goodwin usually is good with his angles. Devin Booker can also do a better job of setting up this screen so that Jaden McDaniels is forced to run into Jordan Goodwin. And then he gets access to get to Kyle Anderson and potentially turn the corner getting downhill. They're moving a little bit too quick. They're not in the best of rhythm at this present moment. All of those things kind of snowball one into another. Ends up turning into Devin Booker having not created any advantage on the second drive attempt. They're not able to put true pressure on the rim or on the paint. And now Devin Booker's kind of trapped to the baseline. He's got a defender in the baseline here. Obviously, Jaden McDaniels swarming him to make sure he terminates his dribble while not having good vision of the rim or even potentially to make a pass. Now, Devin is ultimately able to kind of make this skip, but that skip pass, because the defense has not been penetrated and forced to rotate, is being met by the defender kind of being there right on time of the catch. They've created nothing with their offense again, and now it's the shot clock dwindling down on them. They have no rhythm. They have to settle for a low-quality shot. They get the offensive rebound, and nothing comes of that possession. Now let's get to a couple of positives, because they haven't been absolutely awful, but they've been bad in pockets. And I think that's counterbalanced and kind of showing some routes to success that they do have and that they have shown over this recent stretch. Can kind of help to paint a little bit better a picture of the correctable things that they're able to do and that they've shown to do in this recent window. So we get to this positive rep here. I like this part here. You get it to Jalen Green early in the offense. We broke down this play earlier this week in the film session I did, looking at Jalen Green and how they freed him up on the offensive side in the half court. So you get the swing here from Grayson Allen to Jalen Green. And now you see a little bit of a hook screen that's going to be set from Colin Gillespie. And who is that bringing into action? A preferred matchup in Emmanuel Quickley. So great job on the screen angle. Great job on the tempo in the action from the Suns. They get the advantage that they want early in the clock, and they're able to kind of respace and get around that to allow for Jalen to have as much room for opportunity as he can get to. And like I talked about in the film session with Jalen Green, the respacing dynamic for the Suns, Grayson Allen goes from here to relocating below the free throw line extended. And then Colin Gillespie goes from here, setting that screen, to relocating again also below the free throw line, or below the free throw line extended. So they keep both of these wings above the break completely cleared. And what that's going to do is Jalen Green gets into his dribble package, is open up these elbows just enough for Jalen Green to have optionality in direction that he maybe wanted to go, and then having the opportunity to kind of split two defenders with either direction he wanted to go and get downhill. Because he's able to do those things successfully, and they do all of those things with a certain type of rhythm and cadence and approach, with urgency, with purpose, they're able to get a shot on goal with advantage with 12 seconds on the clock. Now that's something that is being enabled by with this lineup that's on the floor. You got Gillespie, you got Rasheed Fleming, you got Jordan Goodwin, and you got Grayson Allen with Jalen Green. So you have a small ball template. This is why the small ball templates matter. People have not enjoyed some of the recent reps for whatever reason, but this is a big reason why you're able to kind of clear up space and opportunity for Jalen or potentially Devin to put pressure on the rim, have more driving lanes to attack, and you see them reap the benefits of it on his first possession on the positive side of things. Get to this next rep, another one against Toronto. You're going to see, speaking to Devin Booker being on the floor in small ball lineups, similar lineup construct. This time Devin Booker's in place of Jalen Green. And then it's also Iguodala on the floor, but they're going against a little bit of a smaller lineup in terms of what Toronto has on the floor. So have to be intentional about the tempo, the flow, the cadence, and everything that you're trying to get into. So Devin Booker goes to use this kind of double drag action that they're getting into. So you see the double screen. What they want on the back end of the double screen, as Grayson Allen hangs out before slipping it, is trying to trigger that switch to force Emmanuel quickly to, again, be on the basketball. They get that switch that they want, job well done. But now let's watch the decision making off of that with 17 seconds on the clock. So they get to the trigger they want early. And now it's about making quick decisions off of the attention that Devin is getting and leveraging that attention into opportunity for other guys. You can only do that if you're making quick decisions off of it and your spacing is good. And because the Suns get into all of those things with great tempo, they're unable to play off of that opportunity that Devin getting extra attention provides. Gets an overreaction on the ball that allows for Grayson Allen, as he respaces via slipping out of that screen, to be wide open in all of this space. And Grayson does what he's been doing as one of the best drivers on the Suns this entire season. Gets the catch, doesn't waste any time immediately getting downhill and attacking this closeout from RJ Barrett. Immediately puts pressure on the paint. That now occupies the attention of two defenders, really three. You got the help off of the corner with Rasheed Fleming here. You obviously have RJ Barrett trying to get back into the hip of Grayson Allen. And then obviously Scotty Barnes in their small ball lineup getting in rim protection position to potentially take a charge. Grayson Allen has good feel for the game on this drive after slipping out of that screen with Devin Booker. And now because of the attention that he's garnered making quick decisions after Devin Booker's quick decision, Devin Booker and also on the back end, Haywood Highsmith now have a 2 versus 1 with Emmanuel quickly. Haywood Highsmith here, obviously Devin Booker there. Now it's clear who he's going to stick with because of the percentages and who's who as far as shooters go. So that's going to create a natural, easy outlet for Grayson Allen to make a pass to because he has 3 to the basketball. And now Brandon Ingram has to slide down and help the helper to kind of hold over for Oso Ighodaro while Scotty Barnes is occupied. That's all that you want. You create a trigger, you get that first domino to fall, and now you've put your opponents in the blender early in the clock. Still 13 seconds left, and they have a major advantage that they've created. You get it out to Haywood Highsmith, and now he's able to do what he does best in terms of either shooting threes off the catch, wide open, or being able to attack closeouts. And that's exactly what he's going to do on the ladder. Attacks the closeout, crafty inside hand finish. And as I bring this one back so you can kind of appreciate, but also compare and contrast this possession to a handful of the ones that preceded it in this film session, you'll kind of get the gist and get the understanding of just how the Suns are able to get to things when they're moving with a certain type of urgency and a certain type of purpose behind what they're running on offense. Get a positive result, great look at the basket, at a great time on the clock, at a crucial juncture of the game as you get just before what's considered clutch time. A+ process from the Suns on that rep. Get to this one. This is another good rep. This was an after timeout situation. Nonetheless, they get a look that they want. So it's pistol 5. We talked about this one as well with Jalen Green in the film session from earlier this week. Different personnel. Nonetheless, they get into the exact action that they want. So you get the pistol flip to Oso Ighodaro from Grayson Allen. You get the screen off ball, from Haywood Highsmith for Devin Booker. Boston's just switching that, so the flow is not quite the same, but what I want to pay close attention to is creating advantage with the things that you know a defense wants to do. They're switching. Boston's also mixing in unders, something that they do as well as any other team in the league with their defensive shell to steal back advantage and tempo from our offense. So knowing that, also Iguodala wants to get into this dribble handoff with Devin Booker. That's probably a foul. Nonetheless, it's not called, and they don't stop playing. They just keep working to find advantage. They keep prying and plucking away at it. Also, definitely ultimately gets the ball to Devin in the advantageous spot. You get the under here from Jaylen Brown. Watch also Iguodala as the under happens, anticipating that as well as Devin Booker anticipating it. Flip the angle of the screen to now where Jaylen Brown goes to go under. It's like a rhythm and dance almost with a certain type of cadence that creates advantage. Now flips the angle of that screen as Jaylen Brown commits to the under. The angle of the screen here is picture perfect teach tape. For anybody that's a coach in some capacity, that's what you want from a guy to kind of flip the angle on switches, especially if the big is in drop coverage there. As you see with Neemias Queta, 2 feet firmly planted below the free throw line. All of that with the rhythm and cadence and tempo allows for Devin Booker to come off of the screen scot-free, and now he has great opportunity at great shot quality to knock down the three. Let this one flow through so you can kind of appreciate the reads and the cadence and the rhythm and timing of everything. This is something that's very repeatable for the Suns. Some correctable things shown on this rep that they didn't do in the kind of the reps where they left a little bit of room to be desired in this session. Nonetheless, they get to exactly what they want with the personnel that they have. And then we get one last play here to close this film session out. Appreciate y'all tapping in as always. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to our channel, leave a comment if you want to talk some more hoop about them and their fourth quarter offense. I'll be in there to kind of interact with you guys as well. Nonetheless, we get to this final rep. You get a little bit of elbow action. You get, or honestly, this is stagger action for Devin Booker, and I like it a lot. You get the 2 screens being set for him to flow off of. Ends up getting the outer third touch on the other side of the court. And now you're going to see a little bit of a pre-screen being set to pry Devin Booker free of the kind of attention and the kind of pressure that Jaden McDaniels is able to put on ball handlers. So job well done from Gillespie there on the initial screen. And on the second screen, you get also Iguodala doing just enough. Doesn't knock Ayo Dosunmu down per se, but he does just enough for Devin Booker to clear that and now be able to operate in this kind of double gap of space that the Suns have created. So job well done from him there. Job well done from Devin floating into that space to occupy it appropriately, allow for the dust to settle on where the help is, and that allows him to then have his optionality in terms of picking and choosing where he wants to go. And because of them being solid with their process early into it, as well as the tempo early in the clock, Devin Booker is now at a spot where he can attack with 12 seconds left before the help defense can really kind of sink in and try to shrink the floor on him. He's able to get to a spot on the floor where he's more than comfortable, able to get up a 2, and that's the Suns' process. They had 4 bad reps that we talked about. There was a handful more that we could speak to, but I feel like the 4 that I showed are a little bit of a trend or a habit that's kind of been involved with their process. Room for improvement there. Also showed them showing proof of concept to the room for improvement part that I'm speaking to from this latter 4 games of this recent road stretch. What do you think about the Suns offense? Do you think that personnel-wise they can grow from that going forward? Let us know in the comments below. We'll have plenty more to talk about this on our shows to come. And we'll obviously have some games from the Suns over the weekend to further assess these things and talk soon. Be safe.